Nicole, you're the president of Roederer USA. It's a really big role. Can you tell us how you came to this position?
Good morning, Will. Thank you. Yes, I can. I currently hold the amazing position of being the president of the Roederer Collection in the U.S. I have spent the last 25 years in the wine industry, which sounds like a lot. Sometimes it feels like a lot. Sometimes it feels short. And I, I came into the wine industry really through service. I, like many teens, started working in the back of the house, waiting tables, bussing tables, and I was captivated by the wine salespeople who would come in the afternoon with their bag and sit with the F&B director and tell these amazing stories about wine. I was about 18 years old when the drinking age was still 18, and the wine steward quit and the country club that I was working at. And the GM said, "I know you're listening in the back. You're going to be the new wine steward." I had no idea how to use corkscrew. It was incredibly scary, but he took me under his wing and he showed me how to present wine, how to open wine. And I just loved the theater of it and the storytelling, and spent a lot of years working in wine service, and went to college, did all those other things, and found my way to California. And once I got here, was just amazed at the resource, and that you could have a job in the wine industry, and that there was this whole world I knew nothing about, having grown up on the East Coast. So I spent quite, like I said, 25 years in the wine industry, really working to try and understand how the whole thing works. Like there are some people that want to understand how the sausage is made, and some people just want to run the ship. And I wanted to understand how it all worked. And I've spent a lot of time working in so many areas of the business, ultimately to get to a general management path, I guess, if you will. In 2019, Maison Louis Roederer acquired Mary Edwards. As you know, Mary was set to retire, and they felt very strongly about continuing her legacy, pioneering women, and they looked for somebody who had Napa and Sonoma experience. They were already in motion about thinking about making a Napa acquisition, and I was recruited, and it was a dream come true. I got to work with Mary for about 6 months before she fully retired. And then just after about a year, the company decided to make a shift to put all of their winery operations under one person and formalize the Roederer Collection. So I've been in role now overseeing all of our wineries almost a year now.
So that's a very big role that you have, overseeing all these brands, and there aren't a lot of comparisons that we can make with somebody who has such a far reach of management oversight. But what's a day typically like for you, involved in overseeing so many different brands and so many different properties and estates?
Do you think that anybody has a typical day? I don't know. I don't really have a typical day. I think I try to focus my time by spending from week to week, I keep the same schedule of spending a different day at different wineries. So at least I'm in the time and the space and the place of thinking about what that winery does, and how the people function, and the cultural journey that we're on. So that helps. But, like any job at this level, there are days that are just air traffic control, and that it's completely out of control. And you're just trying to keep the thing tamed so it moves along. I spend a lot of my time thinking about long-term strategy. I spend a lot of my time thinking about the resources we have and the resources we're going to need. I think my biggest contribution to the role is to be the strategist of where we are today and where we need to go as an organization, and then also spending time thinking about each of the entities as a singular specialist in what they do.
And when do you get that time to actually have some wine and relax and enjoy? And
I do. I have to. That's the fuel to keep going, right? I think you don't spend this much of your career and time in this business unless you absolutely love wine and you're passionate about it. And I still actually go wine tasting when I have a free weekend here and there just to see what other people are doing and to make sure that I, stay on top of um, new up and comers.
so we talked about the your ascension within Mary Edwards, and of
Mhm.
course, in the recent years, additional brands have been put under your wing. That's a lot of growth, for you overseeing all of that and for the company as a whole. Could you name a few of the challenges that you've come across in the last couple of years
Sure.
relative to all this growth and you taking on a much bigger role within the world here?
I don't, I think for us as an organization, the growth has come through acquisition, Diamond Creek, Mary Edwards, really important acquisitions, and a step to demonstrate our company's commitment to California. I think that's really the foundational message. We are a pretty, a medium-sized organization, but a company that now in its seventh generation of family ownership and management takes a long-term view of how to be world-class wine growers. So the acquisitions were important. I think the growth is for us as a company and for our wineries is making sure the resources are in place for the eighth generation. I see that as my role that I work for the seventh generation, but it's really important that I set us up for success for the eighth generation. Some of the challenges today are certainly environmental. We know that they're talked about all the time. Fire is a challenge, particularly in California. It's become our fifth season. Water is a challenge. And people are a challenge, not just finding them, staffing, labor. That's a challenge. I think it's a challenge that's affecting hospitality nationally. It's not just the wine business, but it is affecting us both in the vineyard and in the tasting rooms.
So with attracting people and within your own career, did you have a mentor during your or up to this point in your career? And are you mentoring others
Mhm.
again to go along with more generations following you to do what you're doing and to expand upon that and put their own thumbprint on the success?
It's a really interesting question. I'm incredibly fortunate to have some patient mentors in my career. If I think back, the very first person that took a risk on me to bring me into the wine industry is a gentleman by the name of Tor Kenward. And he took the time to, to teach me about this, not only the business of wine, and I think it's really important to separate wine business from the business of wine, but also how to unlock the passion about wine. Wine is uh, agricultural product that comes with so much storytelling and um, hard work and enjoyment at the end. And it's important as to have somebody as a mentor to find that in you and help you discover how to bring it to life. So I give him a lot of credit and a lot of patience. And much later in my career, I had the really tremendous opportunity to work with Tony Soter, who then was the founder of A2, the famous Pinot Noir brand, and now owner of Soter. And I learned so much from him. He's still my mentor. We talk often. We see each other when we can. He's up in Oregon now. And then along the journey, I had patient and incredible people who allowed me to apprentice, if you will. And I think that notion of apprenticeship is kind of disappearing. And it's important for people like me in this business to bring that next generation into wine. Um, it's not the first thing you think of when you're a young person and you're going into college, unless your parents are involved in it and unless you live in a wine growing region. It's very far removed. So helping people find the pathway to wine is important to me. And yeah, I'd like to say after all this time and the places I've worked, I've mentored a lot of people and the tentacles have moved out in the wine industry, and there's always 6 degrees of separation.
So all the wineries under your wing, they have strong individuality, which is great. They have individual identities as well. How do you balance that individualism with the continuity and advantages that Roederer, of course, brings to the table? And are there ways in which any one of those wineries have changed some of your thinking on how to engage forward?
I don't think it's much different than um, many of the world-class wine portfolios. If you're in my role, your job is to ensure that every winery is an individual specialist, that they are um, showcasing the terroir where they grow wine, that the wines showcase a sense of place and that they tell their own story. I think as a company, we do that globally. We do it in France, we do it in California, we do it in Portugal. Most wine companies of our ilk, if you will, do the same thing. So that's important. It's what the wine consumer is looking for. They're not looking for homogenized wine companies and wine brands. So we have to do that, and we have to deliver that sense of authenticity because it's inherent in what we do and who we are. The advantage of being in a portfolio and the strategy that I have to bring to the table is how do we capitalize and economize in the back of the house? It's not a consumer facing piece of the business, but there are advantages to the power of a portfolio. And if anything comes from the back of the house to the front of the house, it's that if you are a lover of Mary Edwards, then you can trust that if you've never tried Scharfenberger cellars before, that connectivity, that there is already kind of that stamp of approval, right? And I think that's how we look at all wine portfolios. Well, if they make this wine, then of course I'm going to try this other wine because it came from a world-class house. Your question about have any of them changed my thinking about the others? Well, I try not to allow that to happen too often, just to ensure that we're really maintaining that sense of individuality that's critical in our business. But I think there are learnings that we have adopted that each one of those wineries does something maybe ever so slightly better than another one. So taking best learnings, bringing them over, sure, that's happened. But your question about has one profoundly influenced another? I don't know. I don't think so.
So what changes in the wine industry on a big scale are you hopeful for in the years to come? And the second part of that question is, what are the biggest opportunities for Rotary USA? And they may or may not be related.
No, I do think they're related. I think the Roederer collection, as when you look at the wineries in our group, are heritage brand. They're many cases blue chip brands. We're celebrating 50-year anniversaries, 40-year anniversaries this year at many of our wineries. They're legacy brands. We need to attract new consumers. So that's a challenge for us as a group of wineries that have been at many decades doing what we do. We are known with a consumer that's been drinking our wines for a long time, and our hope is that they've shared that with their children and their children's friends. But it's our job to bring those people in. So I think that's a huge opportunity for us for all of our wineries. When I look at the industry, I think one of the biggest challenges outside of environmental and infrastructure challenges is attracting that next consumer of wine drinker, right? I think that's the buzz we're starting to hear is there's a lot of opportunity and discovery in other areas of beverage alcohol, in some cases, beverage and not alcohol. And our challenge is to ignite that passion that I think all of us have that interface with wine on a daily basis. How do you make that infectious to somebody else who's just up and coming of, you know, starting to explore beverage alcohol?